Hello, hello! Let's talk about the new Solar Raid, shall we? So, I'm going to be splitting, I guess, the video a bit, talking about teams I cannot run because I do not have certain units, and then we're going to be talking about my actual runs. For those who are wondering, I did 2.56 on the main, and the all did, I believe, yeah, 7.33 builds up. So, things to note, by the way, the difference between my alt and main is not that big, but that's because my SBS is still missing an elemental damage roll after 250 runs. That's like 100 to 200 mil damage already. And also my Asuka is kind of worse, I want to say. But I will say these teams that I'm going to show you are going to be from my main because those are overall better. Now, the ones I'm going to be showing will be taking into consideration you don't have mana, or you don't have the mains, or you don't have both, rather. So, this is worth mentioning. I'm going to, obviously, as you see here, I'm going to be talking about other teams. There's potentially the Flex Treasure Viper, Summer Razana, Summer Sakura mana that could work if you have really good, well, really good. If you have decent elemental damage rolls on these people, I think is actually potentially a good team that could break one build and doesn't really take anything from anyone outside of the burst one. The reason why that team works is because Viper does sustained damage, and I believe maybe also boosts sustained damage. Summer Rosanna does damage taken debuff, and also boosts sustained damage. Summer Sakura and Mana both do sustained damage. Mana actually serves as your healer, so that way you actually get to stay alive. Because, spoiler alert, you can't really do this boss without healing. Some teams with really high emerges are able to pull through to some extent, but I personally just don't see how they do it. The boss has a lot of moves that go through cover, and as a result, it's not really ideal. And I'm pretty sure this is a very sweaty method, so I'm not going to cover it if I don't know how it works. So, with that said, maids. The maids are important because you see here, I don't have them. Again, as I said, I don't have them. I don't have mana. I don't have most of anything. So, as a result, it is I'm basically getting my damage gimped a fair bit. So here's the thing. With the maids you're actually able to free up Crown and also Helm or Naga in my case. As you see here. I have Naga and I have Crown. These two can be removed for the maids instead, and you have the healing covered, you have damage increase about on par with Crown, and yeah, you're in a good position. Note that you can also use volume with this team. I've not written that down on my notes, but crit rate buffs actually work fairly fine with Mast, because Mast gives a lot of crit rate, crit damage, so you get to a point where the difference between litter and volume is not that much, because the way crit rate works, crit damage is on the same window as core damage and obviously crit rate and full burst damage. Full burst gives you a 50% damage increase in case you did not. So, why does this matter? Is because since you only have full burst damage, crit rate is not nearly as diluted. So it makes so that characters like SBS, who can crit with their distributed damage but cannot core shut anyway, really are able to do fairly well. I think we will lose some damage, but not that much overall. Okay? Something just worth mentioning because, you know, it's just if you need litter for something else, right? That's worth mentioning for the maids. And because now you have, well, now because you have litter and Helm slash Naga open, you can then put litter with the Eva unit, which you get more out of. The TLDR, ideally, what I would do is just here, probably volume, Maid Mast, SBS, Alice, Maid Anchor. You can pause and look at the teams themselves. On this team, you can actually put Rappy if you have mana well built, because if you're not bursting... See, here's the thing. We get to a point where burst 3 slots are like very, very taken. So if you use Rappy as a burst one to push in more damage, it actually might be better. I say might, depends on your account situation, but yeah. If not, you just use Litter. And then Litter, Crown, Asuka, Ray, Helm, Treasure. Helm is going to provide the heal, provide the burst gen as well, which is going to be a problem with that team otherwise. And then D, Grave, Red Hood, Mana, Modernia is really good because now Mana is fulfilling 2 roles. Before that, in my team, it's Rappy and Rapunzel, I think, which basically translates to you have a unit for healing, you have a unit for damage. Mana won't do the same damage as Rappy does. That's for certain. However, Red Hood gets really boosted up by Grave, so she typically is going to be better, and it's not like Rappy's damage is completely gone being a burst. That's 1. 2, because Mana is now serving as your way to keep yourself alive, you can now run a slot 5 burst 3 DPS, like either Modernia or Christmas. Ludmilla is also a great option for the damage taken debuff, because damage taken in the way the damage is calculated is its own thing. So yeah. If you don't have mana, as I said here, just run Rappy, Summer Mary, or Rappy Rapunzel. Either way is fine. Cinderella, Rouge, Summer Anise, Blanc, and Christmas Maiden. This just makes the fight fairly chill. So as a result, you just have already healing, you have good damage and everything. Keep in mind that if you are using Maiden, burst 12 has to be made. The 12th burst that you're going to be doing has to be Maiden, and that's going to be a little difficult. Just worth mentioning because it is pretty difficult to get everything in the attempt, and sometimes you're able to make it work. Like in my case, I was able to make it work because Cinderella ended up being able to burst twice in a row because of the QT happening in between. But that's not always the case. And then the last one is just the shotguns. Bunny Alice is the best option for this. I think you can make her work with really low investment. Mine has skill 2 level 10 for more max ammo. But for as far as healing is concerned, I don't really have it too high, so it should be fairly solid regardless of how much investment you have in her. There is no overload on her either. She is just working as is, basically, with like 4-10-7 or something like that. Yeah, Noir is not really used in this raid because Guilty is just so much better. Guilty by herself is like 35% of that team's damage. So Drake is really just there to boost her, and so is obviously Tove. If you don't have Bunny Alice, again, you can just replace it with Rapunzel or Summer Mary. These two are like really solid because you don't have to burst with them to heal, they just heal. I know Summer Mary is not exactly common, but you know, if you've played for a while, you probably have her, and now that every raid now has bullshit mechanics that are unavoidable, you kinda need healer a whole lot more, so yeah. Either way, let's talk about it. So this is Team 1. This is probably the hardest one, and for really weird reasons. None of these fights, none of these teams are actually difficult to do overall. The rocks, you can just wait a bit, and then if you have a machine gun, you can just go through them without like going all over the place nearly as much to actually deal with them. You can take them, it's fine, but they destroy your cover by quite a bit. So I strongly recommend dealing with them. Now, another thing is that this laser here is really important that you cover it. The laser will give you an indication so you have no reason to actually miss the cover on it. It does no cover damage. Fantastic. They finally learned from Ultra. Thank God. That took them fucking forever. And as a result, if you do tank it, the AoE where it just turns into a star is going to do triple damage, and it's going to kill everyone, or at least most people. You cannot just face tank the lasers. Even if you can out-heal them, it basically marks your team for death just later. So you don't want to get hit by any of them. So just cover them. As far as the rest is concerned, it's just the damage sponge for the most part. This is an attack that just attacks through cover, as far as I can tell. There's nothing you can do about it. You will take the damage, and this is kind of why you need a healer. Once again, cover because of the laser, because if you don't, your team's dead. And again, these projectiles, you just use your machine gun if you have one. If not, an assault rifle does just fine. They have no HP. Even Blanc is able to just one-shot them. This attack is a one-shot if you got hit by a laser before. So again, just don't. So this is the part that's actually kind of fucked. You can see I'm taking my time with this, because if I don't take my time, it's very easy to hit the white circles for no reason. Even if I'm not using RH, it's very easy to actually like hit a white for no reason. Even if I'm very much out of the way. Might be a skill issue, might be whatever, but I just do it slower because that way it's safer. If you're feeling cocky and you just feel like trying over and over and over and over and you have more time to try, then try to do it faster if you can. Personally, with these circles, I strongly recommend using a assault rifle if you can. However, as you can see, I don't have one with this team. And if I were to use Rappy's machine gun, it can just blow up on a circle and break every white circles at once. So that kills me. So as a result, I just take it slowly with the sniper. If you have mana, this is a non-issue. You just shoot the circle and you move on to the next. And you're going to be completely fine, right? But if you are stuck with Rappy, you'll have to deal with that. That's just how it is. You can either do it with Mana or Modernia, Ludmilla if you have Mana on the team. With the team I've already mentioned before. Yeah, here I'm taking my time because I don't want to hit the circle. You can see like I'm going very much out of my way because even if you're like around midway the circle, it's very possible to just, well, hit the white and just kill yourself in the process. So yeah. By the way, I believe this is my worst scoring team just because I don't have wind DPS to take advantage of the elemental damage. Volume does not even have overload, so yeah. It is what it is. Once again, it's mostly because I don't have mana. Summer Sakura can also technically work, but I feel like if you don't have the sustained squad, her damage is decent, but nothing really boosts her specifically. So it's a bit awkward to use her. Very solid for Union Raid though, at least if you're like me and have to run like 8+ teams. She was surprisingly good in the last Union Raid. If you want an indication of when to swap characters, by the way, so that you know when to swap to avoid taking damage, it's very simple. You see how it turns into a hourglass? When you start seeing those white circles around, that's the time to swap. That's your indication that, oh, it's about to shoot. Other than that, yeah, this fight is incredibly simplistic. Most of the mechanic you just heal through, so yeah. I mean, this beats the shit out of the last 4 boss they made, the last 3 Solar Raid and Black Snake. It's a lot less cancer, but it's kind of boring, so... eh. I doubt this video is going to be needed to help many people, but I figured I might as well do it. I've done it for every other Solar Raid where I stop now. So, this team, Burst Gen is a problem. Kind of. If you want to do maximum damage, it is kind of a problem. Because you run into the very simple problem of, dear God, if I want to get 13 bursts in, or 12, actually, at least 12, but if you're lucky, 13, but it's most likely going to be 12, because of the QT in the middle taking time away. Dear God, it's rough. It's extremely rough. You're basically left with almost no time after the 12th burst. But yeah, spam shooting with Rouge and Maiden whenever you have whenever you need to generate burst is the way. Rouge generates burst a little better than Maiden because there's only one thing to shoot. But other than that, you know, it's a bit awkward. Here I got lucky in this run, by the way, because my Rouge proc twice, or CDR, which allowed me to proc with Cinderella after the QT again. So basically back to back. But yeah, as you can see, this does almost nothing. Honestly, this might be doable with Mary. Yeah, here I fucked up really bad. As you can see. I ended up, like, fixing it, but yeah. See, here, usually Cinderella should be still on cooldown, but I was lucky enough that Rouge lowered my cooldown well enough, and I fucked up as well, which probably helped, to be honest. If you have like a few seconds before Cinderella is available for bursting, this might be a good idea to wait, but I did not play around enough to tell. I don't think it's the case. Unless Rouge is just proccing CDR down enough times, which, you know, it is what it is. It's hard to tell. The boss is like 4 attacks, so there's not a whole lot to say about it. Especially when most of them is just, well, you cover that one, you face tank that one, you face tank that one as well. Like this one, you just face tank. The one that pierces cover, you also face tank. There's like no mechanic to speak of. So here I bursted with Maiden because Cinderella was still on cooldown. And I was like, oh, I might be able to get an extra Cinderella burst in there. Which I did, just barely. Keep in mind my Maiden is not very good at all. And my Summer Niece is mostly elemental damage. She doesn't have a whole lot of attacks, so... At the end of the day, it's pretty decent for the investment I put in. Team 3 is Shotgun, and unironically, Shotgun feels really good on this boss. Honestly, you don't have to proc Elise right away. I just decided to do it, and that was the run that actually worked. For the most part, it's just pretty simple. You just shoot at it. If you have low ammo on Guilty, ideally you just stay in full burst, right? Stay in full burst, and then when you're reloading, you shoot the little cube that the boss throws at you. The reason why that's the case, why that actually is ideal, is because Guilty is your main source of damage. Because she's wind, and she just hits like a truck. Once again, it's a bit of a boring fight, so there's not much else to say. Bunny Alice is just there for healing and giving more max ammo, so yeah. Basically very similar to like if you add Rapunzel or Summer Mary, but she also has the benefit of giving you more max ammo so you have less downtime. Here I use Stove because, as I said, Assault Rifle is ideal. Shotguns are kind of awkward because they can just hit the white very easily. I was kind of surprised how much damage this team did, but my Guilty, while not having a whole lot of max ammo, apparently has 3 elemental damage rolls, so that helps a fair bit. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, this boss is incredibly easy, so for the most part, every team comes down to needing a wind unit and a healer, and if you have that and you do the like one mechanic which is covering the laser and breaking the cubes, you're pretty much fine, right? I'm really only showcasing the teams because at the end of the day, I know there's people that want to see how the team actually plays, and also I just do that in general, so you know. But as far as like what there is to say about the boss, there's not a whole lot. If you're wondering how much damage I would do if I had the Maids and mana, I think I would probably be at with the main, and if I had the elemental damage roll on SVS, probably around 8.5, 8.8, around those numbers. So, yeah. Once again, the fight is very simplistic. Also note that if you're using Eska and you really want her to be good, please get 3 max ammo roll because it makes a massive difference for her. It basically means that she will not run out of ammo until she's forced to run out of ammo from her skill, and basically has no downtime as a result. I'll be updating the spreadsheet for Eska and also Ray once I'm actually done with this video. Hopefully, anyway. her. Also, if you wonder, yeah, the circle goes in one order, and then they swap to the other side, the other order, basically. But yeah, this team is pretty hands-off. You just shoot at it constantly. One thing to note, however, with Helm... Oh shit, I actually have a point to actually talk about with this boss. One thing to note about this team is that the heal over time that Helm does is not enough. At least it's not enough for me. It might be enough for you if your skill 1 is higher level, but considering we have a manual shortage, I don't think most people's Helm is 10-10-10, especially with skill 1 being completely fine at 7. Or even at 4, to be honest. You really don't need it that high. You will need to burst with Helm once. And the place where you should be bursting with her is after the QTE is over. I believe you are bursting first with Asuka. After that burst with Asuka, you are bursting with Helm. So you just want to burst with her when it would have been Ray's turn instead. Because if you are bursting during Asuka's turn, you are dropping a good chunk of damage out of like the final amount. Because when she's bursting, her damage absolutely implodes. Just worth mentioning. And Team 5 is no surprise SBS Alice. If you have Maids, you can actually have Litter or Rappy. Well, Rappy is only if you have mana, but you can actually have Litter for the team with the Evangelion unit. So if you're underwhelmed by the damage that I did with that team, that's mostly why. I can only use Litter in one team, unfortunately. So as a result, I lose a fair bit amount of damage with Eva. If, you know, I had the Maids, I could run volume and I don't lose too much damage with this specific team. So as a result, you can just run Litter with Eva and you get more damage out of Litter that way. But I don't, so here I am. Also, obviously, my SBS is more built than my Eva units. But genuinely, if I had Litter, I could probably do 1.5, 1.6. Keep in mind, my Asuka is 10-4-7, and my Ray is 7-4-7. So, like, there's a lot of room for improvement. Yeah, this one is pretty simple because you're using Crown. Machine Gun go through this really fast, very nicely. Also, yeah, I was lagging a fair bit during some part of my attempts, but it is what it is. Also, another thing to note is that Alice is going to do a lot better with Maids because she's going to have 100% reload speed thanks to them. With this team, I like the full reload speed buff that I would have with both Maids, so it just would do overall better, I think. But it is what it is. Had to skip it. Even though 2.5 is probably going to be Nayuta, if I were to guess. I'd rather just avoid getting my pens down as far as potentially getting Little Mermaid. The one character I'm actually looking forward to. So yeah, with this team I did worse than on my alt, but also I was not running Helm on this because I was running Naga. Naga does not do much, by the way, she just heals. But as far as the healers are concerned, because she's with Crown, she transformed the 21% attack damage buff that Crown gives, basically 50% of the time to 100% of the time. So while she only does healing, thanks to her, Crown is more consistent with the buff she gives, so you get a buff, technically through her, of like 10% attack damage increase. 10.5, right? So I figured it would be better to have her on this team, whereas Helm would just give a full-on attack damage boost. Whereas if I were to put Naga on the other team, I would just get I would just get a healer with no bonuses because there's no core. Also, you might have realized I'm not running Tia Naga. Tia Naga is pretty bad on this boss. Like, unironically, Tia, what does Tia does? Well, what does Tia do? Well, I mean, 30% attack damage. And Naga would give attack if she's bursting at the very least, but it's nothing insane. Attack tends to be very diluted. I'd rather run Mary because Mary is like attack damage at the very least. And while Tia does that, it's kind of all she does. They don't really give too much because you don't really care about your recover. So it's a bit awkward, right? So I don't really see a point of them. But maybe I'm just wrong. That's just how I felt while using the character. But yeah, I think that's about it. Hopefully this is helpful to some. I would be kind of surprised if it was, to be honest. Here are all the damage the teams did and what the teams are. Thank God you can actually zoom in into these. But yeah, this is basically what my teams did. If you care about my ult and you just want to see what the ult did, this is what the ult did. Again, these teams feel a lot worse than what I did on the main. I think if I did these teams on the the team I did on my main on the ult, I would probably get a bit more damage in, but that remains to be seen. I don't feel like doing the solo raid a third time. So, yeah. Again, hopefully this was helpful to some. And I'll see you all in the next one. Hopefully mirror container. Have a nice one, everyone.